Hello everybody, and let's begin our masking tools project. Now you should have a folder somewhere with all the images that I asked you to gather. You should have 10 photos of whatever animal you chose. In addition to that, you should have a fog photo, a forest silhouette photo, a moon with a black background, some sort of curving dirt road, a beautiful evening sky, and the more colorful it is, the better. You should also have 5 clip arts of your animal in some sort of silhouette fashion. I realize number 2 here is not a silhouette, but I chose that to show you guys if you did get a colored one that we can change it to black. And you should have a headshot or an additional 6th photo of your animal to use in our moon. And the last photo I have here is this cloud, and that's just because I just happened to stumble upon it and thought it was pretty cool. So I'll have a little video tutorial for that, so you can later on find a photo that might work for your animal. So let's get our file set up in Photoshop. So I'm going to do a File, New. And I want to change my default size to US paper. However, I want it to go the opposite way. Right now it's up and down like a normal sheet of paper would be that you would write on in class. I just want to flip these 2 dimensions. I want my width to be 11 and my height to be 8.5. And make sure it's doing inches and not pixels, because if it's pixels, it'll be super teeny tiny. The last thing I'm going to change is my resolution. I'm going to set that to 300 so my image is nice and detailed and not pixelated. I'm also going to come up here and I want to save this as my first name and last name and call it masks. So that way when you guys turn it into me, we know whose it belongs to and you don't have to fight with going back and changing anything on your file name, and throw masks on there so we know what it is. So your first and last name and masks. The size is 11 wide, 8.5 tall, and the resolution is 300. Hit OK. So here's your sheet, and again, it's going horizontally, not vertically. Now we are going to mess with our sky and our forest on this first one. So we need to get those images in here, and I like to use File, Place. This is like a fancy copy and paste. It's kind of handy. So I just need to go back in here and I need to find my masks folder. So here are all of my pictures. I first of all want my sky. So here's my sky. I'm going to place it. And boom, there it is. Now this big X is kind of like when we use free transform and we have to hit enter to keep it. We have to hit enter or return to keep this photo. That'll go away, and now it's okay for me to play with. Let's go back in here and let's also place our forest. And hit enter also. Now, my sky. I'm going to get my forest out of the way. We need to get our sky up here all the way to the top. And if you need to free transform it and resize it, anything you need to do to make it fit, make sure it fits all the way across the edge of your stage. And I'm not worried about this white spot down here because I'm going to fill it in later. Once I've got my sky up there, I'm going to come back to my forest. And I am going to resize it also because it's too small. And I also need it to go all the way across the edge of my stage. But then the next thing I need to worry about is my sky photo has a horizon line. Yours might have some buildings, it might have an oil pump, it could have all kinds of different things that we need to hide. So my forest picture needs to cover up this black silhouette of my trees. So on my forest later, I'm going to come up here to opacity. Now, right now opacity is set to 100, so it is not see-through. 100% is like the wall. You can't see through it. unless you're some sort of superhero. And 0% is glass, so if I drag it down to 0, it's invisible, it's gone. I just want to find a happy medium in there where I can still see what's happening behind it, but still see my trees. And then I'm just going to adjust my forest to match. Now, I don't want my forest to be too crazy tall, so I'm going to come back to my sky. I'm going to resize it so I can drag it down a little bit. And then I'm going to take my forest and bump it up so it's covering my grass. So I have no more grass there that is from the previous sky layer. So this ground right here is being covered up by my trees. Now we all have different pictures, so you're going to have to interact with these two separately and differently than I did probably to get this sort of result. And once I'm happy, I can drag my forest layer back to 100%. So the next thing we're doing is we're going to finally mask this. Now in the past, we may have used different selection tools to get rid of this sky, or you might have just straight up erased it. Well, we're using masks. So just like that picture I showed you guys the other day, this is what our mask is going to look like later. So we've got this picture here of a building, and it has this pretty bright blue sky. The photo behind it has kind of this ominous, cloudy, stormy-looking sky. Well, this right here is our mask. So when we apply our mask, it's going to be all white. When you come back and you start to paint your mask on there, use your selection tools or whatever you decide. Whatever you're going to keep is going to stay white. So check it out. The building shape matches my mask shape. And whatever is going to be gone is going to be black, so my sky here is black. So when it is invisible, it's going to be able to replace it with this cloudy sky. So this is exactly what we're going to be doing, but instead of a building, we're going to have trees. And instead of a stormy sky, you'll have a bright sunset. So just like this little picture has right here, this is our mask button. So we need to find the box with the circle in it at the bottom of our layers palette. So I'm on my forest, because that's the part of my image I need to hide. And I'm going to apply my mask. So right here is that button. Now when that mask is applied, you'll see you should have a white box next to your forest, not your sky, your forest. But also, do you see those little white handlebars around the edge of that white box? Check it out. I can also click on my picture, so I can toggle back to my photo and still edit it. So you have to be careful that you're selected on either your mask or your photo, whichever one it is that you're wanting to work on. So see how that toggles back and forth? We want to be on our mask. So here in a second when we start painting, if it's actually painting the color white or the color black, you're in the wrong spot. So I'm on my mask. Now I'm going to come over here to my paintbrush tools. And let's get a hard brush. So not a fuzzy brush, but a hard brush. Now, check out your colors palette down here at the very bottom of your tools bar. Regardless of what was there before, you should now have black and white. What's going to happen is black removes. Black is like your eraser. But if you mess up, white paints it back. So here's the kicker. Watch this. Watch right here. Find the X key on your keyboard. That is the shortcut to switch between foreground and background colors. So while you're painting, you don't have to keep coming back here and clicking and changing colors. You can just hit X, and oh, I need to paint black, oh, I need to paint white, and you can toggle back and forth. Now masks are ideal because you've never permanently deleted anything. So you could be in here, you know, erasing, doing your thing, and then later on in the project you realize, ooh, probably shouldn't have done that. As long as your mask is still there, you can come back and bring any part of that image back. So this is what I need from you guys. Right now you're going to use your black hard brush, and you're just going to sit here and get rid of the sky. Now don't worry about being crazy detailed and getting too close to the trees. But if you do erase any of the trees, then you do need to come back and paint it back in with white. I'm going to zoom in so I can see a little better. Now, as you're painting, you'll notice your mask is filling with black wherever it is that you've been painting with black, even though it doesn't show up black. So we're not getting close to the trees, we're just adding our mask. Now again, you don't have to be crazy detailed about it, but I am zoomed in a little bit, and I'm just kind of getting a rough shape of the edge of this tree. So anywhere it really kind of majorly dents in because of a branch, just kind of stick my brush in there and erase it. And if I mess up, I just switch back to white and bring it back. All right, so when you're done, your picture should look something like this. We've gotten rid of the sky and these big open areas, and we've roughly gone around the shape of the trees. You don't have to worry about getting in there in between every single branch and every single leaf, but for the big major open areas, we have knocked it out. And your mask should resemble that. It should look like the edge of your tree silhouettes. Now the next step is we need to get rid of all this extra color. It would be really, really hard to come in here and just painstakingly mask every little needle of these trees. So we're going to come up here to where it says normal, and we played in this menu back when we painted on our black and white images and colorized them. We also messed around in here when we did some of our blending options. We made stuff, look 3D and stuff like that. So what you're going to need to do is, again, you have different pictures than me. So you're going to have to play around in here and see which one works best for whatever colors your trees and skies are working with. Now for me, I'm going to start with darken. Darken removes any light colors. And hey, that worked pretty darn good for me because my trees are already jet black. Now if you have a more daytime looking tree picture, you might have to mess around with maybe overlay or even color burn. It's just going to depend on your pictures, but you'll know if it works or not. Now if you get the whole way through this and none of them look good, then you probably need to go back and find a different picture because your picture isn't dark enough. It's too much of a daytime image. It's too green. Also, another problem some people have is their sky can just be too much like daytime blue, and it has a hard time with their background sky. So if you're having issues with the color difference between the two, call me over and we'll take a look at maybe what could be fighting it, and I can suggest which image you need to replace. The last step is you may or may not have a little gap down here. And if you do, this is what you need to do to fix it. You're going to make a brand new layer. And we are going to take our rectangle marquee tool, not the elliptical, but the rectangle. We're just going to drag a box. It doesn't matter how big, as long as it doesn't overlap anything else. And we're going to fill that in with the color black. Boom, it's gone. So now I should have my colorful sunset, and then I should have a harsh edge on my black trees going over the top of my sky. Now, backing up a little bit, back to when we messed with our layer styles over here. You may have been like, well, why didn't we do that first? That would have knocked my sky off instantly. And it would have, but later on, we're going to be spending a lot of time up here in our sky, because we're going to add that moon, and we're going to have that road curving down, and then you're going to have all of your animals. And those images would end up fighting with the colors that were sort of invisible from our sky due to having applied darken or overlay, or whichever one worked for you. So we used our mask tool to get rid of that big open area where that stuff's going to be. We got rid of the sky in that spot, and then cheated a little bit by using darken to get those little areas where we couldn't come in and mask that off. Now let's go ahead and name this black layer. If you made it, just name it black ground so you know what it goes to. And I like to kind of bunch these things up together, because if I need to move my black ground, it should probably go with my forest. So I'm going to make a folder. I'm going to call it ground. And I'm going to add my forest and my black ground to that folder, so then they're bunched up, they're packaged up, they're friends, they're best friends, they're holding hands everywhere they go, and if I need to do something to both of them at once, I can. So when you're done, you should have a ground folder with your forest inside of it, or your forest in your background, black ground, not background, and your sky layer. All right, let's do a little save action. Make sure we got it ready and move on to the next video. Thanks, guys.